Hi, everybody, and welcome to Channel 98. Today we have a very, very, very interesting show that we want you to just kind of settle back, and we're going to do some history with music, and we're going to talk to the man who knows all about music. We're very pleased to have in Studio B with us today here in Jenkins, Mr. Sonny Tackett. Of course, I'm GC, and I've done this kind of interviews before. And this one I know a little bit more about than the others that I've ever done, because I too am from the music world. Not that I can sing or play a guitar or do any of that stuff, but I've played music since 1960 on the radio as a DJ, and so I got to very familiar with the system and how it works and those people. And also the thing that I learned most about that music world is how tough it is, how really, really tough it is to really make your place. It's so crowded. It has so much talent in it, and it's so the competition is more than the Olympics. It's greater than the Olympics. Trying to find a place there. So, but we have a gentleman with us today that actually has gone through the whole gamut, and he's still with the music world, and we're very pleased. And I want to introduce to you Mr. Sonny Tackett.
Thank you, Mayor Kincer.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. We're glad to have him in our city. There's some things we're going to tell you about him, but most of all, he's here today. And what we're going to be talking about, he's going to be with us again. When we go into our Jenkins Days Festival, Sonny's going to be back with us. Today you're going to get a preview of his performances and what he's capable of and what a good time we're going to have. Also, another facet of Sonny is that he, and help me with this if I may, he also still is and was the best friend of Gary Stewart.
I would like to think so, that I was the best friend. Yeah, Gary and I loved each other. We were brothers. He called us brothers of the road.
Yeah, and he called you little brother.
He called me little brother.
Right.
That's what he always called me, little brother. Yeah.
Sonny has sung with him, performed with him in many different occasions and many different times. Of course, we're focused, Sonny, here on Gary Stewart because he is a Jenkins guy, born and raised on Payne Gap, Kentucky. Is that right? I think. Yeah, Payne Gap. And so he's sort of our adopted son here in this city. Not adopted. He's one of us.
Well, he was born here in Jenkins, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And Gary actually left here because of his father had a mining accident here in this town and couldn't work anymore, and they had family in Florida, so they moved to Florida. Gary.
About what age was he when he did that? Do you know?
He was about 11 years old when he moved to Florida.
Was he singing then? At 11,
he was already singing and playing guitar and piano. Gary was an awesome piano player. In fact, he played piano. A lot of people don't know this, but he played piano for Charlie Pride for 2 years. I mean, on the road all the time. And when Gary's first song, "Drinking Thing," made it up into the charts, he was playing at that time. He was still playing for Charlie Pride and had his own single in the charts. And I actually have that video that I will bring up and give to you guys of Ralph Emery bringing up Charlie Pride, doing an interview with Charlie Pride and Gary Stewart at the same time. And Charlie Pride comes up and sings a song, and then Ralph has Charlie introduce Gary, and Gary comes up and sings "Drinking Thing." And it's an awesome interview.
Let's go back to your connection with Gary. When did that first start?
Well, that first started as soon as Gary did anything in Nashville that made the charts. It hit me right away, bam, just like that. And the very first time that he came back home here to sing, which was right after he got on RCA Records, we met at my Uncle Marlowe's place. Gary and I, we just clicked. We were a lot alike. We liked the same music. We liked the same stuff. We just clicked, and we loved to write. Both of us loved to write. We became friends immediately, and we were friends up until the moment he passed away. you know. And down through
How
the
many years ago was that? Do you know?
Gosh, it was 75, 76, about 77, I'm thinking.
And you were how old then, as a young man?
Now that's a tough question.
Well, we won't go there, but you were a young man yourself.
Yes, I was.
And both of you were young.
Yes.
At that time. And
Yes.
so it was you all met and very charismatic, both of you were, and so you all just kind of gelled together.
Yes. Whereas Marlowe was a club owner and had a lot of other stuff to do, me and Gary were musicians, and we grabbed our guitars and took off with them, you know.
So did he have a band? Gary have a band at that time?
The very first time he came to Marlowe's, he used Marlowe's band. From that moment on, from every engagement after that, he always brought his own band.
You remember that band?
I remember that band very, very.
I mean, were you a member of that band?
I was a member of that band.
And you played what?
I played guitar.
Guitar for Gary.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can tell you everybody in the band. You know,
tell us.
Clifford Akers, who lives at Dorton, Kentucky right now. The drummer was Gary Fields from Johns Creek, Kentucky. The lead guitar player was Robert. Come on, I know what I'm saying here. I'll get it in a minute. Last name. But anyway, Robert was from Virgie, Kentucky. And I played rhythm guitar and fronted the show. And like I would go on stage and I would play rhythm guitar, and then I'm a good harmony singer. I would sing harmonies with Marlowe on his vocals. And when Gary came in to play, our band backed him. And from that time on, like I said, Gary always carried his own band after that, because you always do that. I run into the same thing in my performances. I'll go to a place and the people won't know everything that I want to do. So I can't do this song because the band doesn't know it, you know. So Gary was the same way. So immediately, as soon as he had his first hit, he put together a road band. And I became friends with every one of them, and they were personal friends of mine. I talked to them on the phone yesterday, you know.
In your career, do you feel like you have, at what level of accomplishments do you think how far have you gone with your career, and how much further you plan on trying to get to?
Well, I never wanted to be a star. What I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to play music and make a living. If I could play music and make a living playing music, I was happy. I didn't have to be a star. This big ego thing that a lot of other artists have, I don't have. I don't worry about that. Gary never had it either. And that's what he never was like that. And that's what he wanted also. He wanted to just play his music, make a living. But the proudest thing that I've ever done in my life, as far as being proud of something that I've accomplished, has to be my writing. Because the writing, you can go anywhere and see any bar band play Freebird. Any bar band in this world. But where can you go and see an artist sit down and play all night long and play nothing but songs that he's written, and a lot of those songs recorded by other people?
One of the promotion guys that I knew in Los Angeles, and I asked him this question. I said, what's the most important thing about an artist in the music world, about getting on his own feet, getting planting into this world? And he said, is the most important thing for us, when we're hunting someone to promote, they have to have written their own song.
Yeah.
They have to have written their own music.
Yeah.
And they have to perform it.
Yes.
And he said, that's the criteria that we use.
That's it.
So you agree with that?
I agree 100% with that. There are good singers who don't write. You know, there's a few good singers out there that don't write very much. And the only thing about the Nashville, now, what you have to understand here is I've lived in Nashville off and on for 20 years. I lived a long time in Nashville. And I worked out of Nashville. And I worked with hundreds of artists. I'm not saying, like 150 or 10 or 20. I worked with hundreds of artists. The reason why was I was a sound engineer. So this weekend, I would be out with the Oak Ridge Boys because their engineer got sick and had to take the week off, and he's in the hospital with pneumonia, and they have shows to do, so they call me. I'm an on-call engineer. So I go out and I engineer for the Oak Ridge Boys.
So you can run that great big board that
exactly,
they have.
or anything
and
else.
You know how to bring them up.
Anything else you have. Any studio equipment in the world.
And you can listen as they're recording and tell what they need.
That's what I do. Mm-hmm. In fact, I just, I'm going to play it for you in a few minutes.
Okay.
I just produced Greg Allman's son, Michael. If you're familiar with the Allman Brothers band, I mean, which everybody is.
Sure.
Gary told me one time, he said, me and you, we're just little pups. He said, this is the big time. And who he was talking about was the Allman Brothers band. Because Gary was close friends with the Allman Brothers band, and I was able to meet all the band through him. I've been at numerous occasions where they taped and filmed, and I've sat in the motel room with Dickie Betts, and Gary and I had just written, in fact, here at Dorton, up on the top of the mountain in the flat woods in a cabin, Gary Stewart and I came up there and stayed 3 days and wrote 6 songs. We went back to Nashville, and the day we went back to Nashville and checked into the motel, we got a call from downstairs, and it was Dickie Betts of the Allman Brothers band. He said, come on down, to the bar. So we went down to the bar, and we invited him back upstairs to the room. Now, this is like at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. At daylight the next morning, we were still sitting there in that room playing, because I sat there I sat here on this bed, and Dickie Betts sat right here on this bed playing Torture. And that's the song that Gary and I had just written up on the mountain. And that's how well it was liked. It's on my album, Outlaws Lament, that is out right now. And Gary recorded a demo version of it, but RCA wouldn't let him release it because they told him it was too rock and roll. So there was numerous songs that we wrote together that he did demos on that were never released, and the reason why is he was told they were too rock and roll. They wanted to keep him in that real country genre. They find a niche for you there. That's the only thing I got against Nashville. They find a niche for you, and they want to keep you right there. They don't want you to progress any farther,
They still do that today, don't they?
They still do that today, absolutely.
Because they're about, instead of more about the talent and the art of it, they're about the business, the money. Exactly.
I was on a plane trip coming back from Mexico City. I lived in Mexico City for a year. And I was on the plane coming back from Mexico City, and I wrote a song called, I took a piece of stationery that the stewardess gave me, and I wrote this song, and it's called Make It a Double. And
I like the title.
As soon as I got back, I knew this would be a great Gary Stewart song, And I actually sent it to Roy Day, who was Gary's producer. And Roy produced my first album, which was The Way of the Gun. Roy and I were friends for years also. Anyway, on Make It a Double, we went ahead and put it on my album. Roy producing, and I produced. Roy produced my first album in Nashville, in studios in Nashville, and whereas I'm a lot more rock and roll than Gary was, and he got that influence from me. He wanted. Gary would feed off of you. If you had something that he heard that he liked, he would learn it. He would feed off of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't realize this when it was going on, but I was learning from him, but he was also learning from me. And at the time, I didn't realize that. But later on in years, I learned how much that really happened. And anyway, I wrote "Make It a Double."
Now, what made you think of Gary Stewart when you said, why would you categorize him and say this is a Gary Stewart song? Because that's what Nashville does.
That's exactly what they done. Because, see, what Gary wanted to do was cross over to rock and roll. His favorite artists of all time were the Allman Brothers Band. His favorite artist wasn't Red Sovine or Merle Haggard or people like that, even though he did love those. But his favorite artist was the Allman Brothers Band. He wanted to play Southern rock and roll. That's what he wanted to do. And he would have crossed over into that market had RCA let him.
I think, Sonny, there's different levels for artists
Yeah.
and of what you reach, the greatness that you reach.
Yes.
And there are only a few that make it to what we call icons
Yes.
of the business.
Yes.
And the Allman Brothers is an icon.
Absolutely. Greg Allman has been inducted into the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, 3 times. So has Dickie Betts. I was there at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when Dickie Betts was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I have that video too, by the way, if you want it.
Nashville has changed a lot since you were involved down there. Is it getting
Yes,
tougher to get into that scene?
There
down
are
there?
400,000 musicians in Nashville trying to make it right now that can't buy food.
Wow.
Okay, you want to tell me?
That's the way it was.
Let me tell
Yeah,
you a little
still the
story.
same way, okay.
Let me tell you a little story about Nashville. I arrive in Nashville on Thursday, and I go to. This is after I left Marlowe's, and Gary said, I talked to Gary on the phone about the whole deal, and he said, Sonny, quit that job, go to Nashville right now. I quit Marlowe's, I went straight to Nashville, okay? I got to Nashville, I went out to Bill Holmes, who is a publisher, and who had published the 6 songs that Marlowe had recorded of mine, which was Would You Know Love, Make It, I think to remember all of them. There were 6 songs that he recorded of mine. And Bill Holmes had been the publisher on all of them. And Bill Holmes was also the bass player for Tom Paul Glazier, which was, you're familiar with Tom Paul and the Glazier Brothers?
Yes.
Okay, he was their bass player, but he was also a publisher. So I went to his home that evening, and the day I got to Nashville, I signed a publishing contract. The very day I got there. We signed, I wasn't there 2 hours before I already signed the publishing contract.
That's incredible.
Nobody does that, okay?
No,
Nobody
that's
does.
incredible, yeah.
Okay, then that evening we went over songs that I was writing, because I'd been in the interim in the last like 5 months since I'd seen Bill. I'd written a lot of new stuff, and we went over different songs that I'd written, and Bill said, wow, he said, this would be great for Tommy Overstreet, you know. And he said he could really do this song. So he rang up Tommy Overstreet's producer. Tommy Overstreet's producer says, yeah, we're recording an album right now. As a matter of fact, we just finished it, and I just sent it to the presses just a few minutes ago. But if you want to come over in the morning, I'll still listen to the song, and maybe I'll have another artist that might be interested in doing that song. And we said okay. And early the next morning, I mean, it was real early I thought for musicians, which was like 7 o'clock in the morning. We were in his office at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I have no idea why. But anyway, we were there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I had a little cassette of me playing the song. So, you know, we all introduce each other and go through the formalities and everything, and Bill tells him about what I've done and so forth. And he puts the cassette in, and he hits play on it. It plays the first verse and the chorus, and he just reaches over and cuts it off. And, you know, just my heart just sank. I just knew. I said, well, you know, you know, I just think,
Lost my chance.
yeah, you know, he never said a word. He reached over and picked up the phone, dialed a number. He said, hey, Tommy, man, listen, be in the studio at 7 o'clock on Monday morning. We're recording a new song. Clunk. Put the phone down. pick it back up. The old rotary dial phones,
Oh yeah, that's
you know,
what I'm
okay?
telling you.
Remember
Your
those?
age, be careful.
You know, I'm telling you my age, right? Yeah. So, didn't even have the push button phones back then, you know. So he dials the next number and he says, United Pressing, hey Joe, hey, stop the presses on the Tommy Overstreet album. We're doing a new song. We'll deliver it to you next week. Okay, done deal. Monday morning, I was in the studio, and this blew my mind because I never heard of this in my life. And Tommy will tell you, I've got Tommy Overstreet's personal phone number at home, and I can give it to you, and you can call him and interview him sometime if you want to. Wonderful guy, Tommy Overstreet is.
I played a lot of his music.
Yeah, very, very good guy. Lives up in Montana, has his own little ranch in Montana. Bet. Yeah, beautiful. But anyway, to make a long story short, 7 o'clock in the morning, we are singing this song.
Hey, how do you get ready for that? I mean, how do you get up at 7 in the morning?
Well, see, most studios in Nashville don't start till like 10, 11 o'clock. For some reason, this particular producer liked to work early in the morning. 7 o'clock, I was at the studio. And, normally they don't even let the writer in the studio with the singer. They don't want the writer's influence on it. They don't want the writer saying, no, that ain't how it goes. It goes like this. They don't want that. They want to take that version and just have a little cassette, listen to it, and then do their own version of it. They didn't want to do that with me. I was in the booth with Tommy. I mean, I wasn't like in another booth over here and he was here. We were both on the same microphone. I never saw this happen in all my years in Nashville. This is the only time I ever saw this happen. I sang the first line of the song. First of all, the band ran through the song and I sang it once. So the band had it down. Then Tommy's time came to do his vocal on it. Mm-hmm. So this is on Monday. I mean, I just got into Nashville on Thursday. This is on Monday morning. So Tommy I sing the first line, the band stops. Tommy sings the first line. True story. I sing the second line. The band stops, backs up. Tommy sings the second line. Sung the whole entire song that way.
He wants to do it just like you did.
Only time, one line at a time. I never saw anybody ever record that way in my life, ever.
Did you bring that song with you today?
I brought it. I got the record right over there in that little box.
Are you going to do that?
I can show it. I don't know if I can do that or not. I'll try it. Yeah. But I'll tell you what I did. I brought the actual record by Tommy Overstreet. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I want to tell you about this that makes it so interesting is this song has crossed 3 genres. This is one of the first 10 songs that I ever wrote in my life. And it crossed 3 genres. It was released by Tom Paul Glazer's brother Jim in England as a rock and roll song and made it up into the top 100 in England as a rock and roll song. And never released over here. Okay? Mm-hmm. Then Tommy recorded it. Mm-hmm. It went to number 9 in the nation by Tommy Overstreet. Okay? Mm-hmm. A few days ago, Charlie Sizemore released a brand new album called Heartache Looking for a Home. My song that Tommy Overstreet took to number 9 in the nation is the number 1 song on that album. So it just got recorded by a bluegrass artist. The song has been recorded by a rock and roll artist, been recorded by a country artist, been recorded by a bluegrass artist. It's the only song I've ever written that's crossed 3 genres. It's very interesting.
We are going to do that song.
I will a little bit later. I will do
just
that
a
for you, I
piece of it, just so we can hear it, so we can relate back to this story. That's a good story.
Yeah, I can find it and do it for you.
Yeah.
I haven't done this song in 20 years.
See what he thought was just going to be normal business as usual.
Well, the thing about this song is also now,
Yeah.
it's true. Dead up true. True story. I saw this.
Let me ask you this
I
question.
saw this happening with my own eyes, and I wrote the song.
Isn't that what country music is about? True stories.
Yeah, it really is.
And that's why sometimes nobody can mimic that.
And for you folks out there in TV land, this is my mojo book. You see? Gary Stewart called this my mojo book. I've got 200 songs in here I've written. And down in the quarter happens to be one of them. I got a couple.
The reason I'm interested in this, Tommy Overstreet was I played a lot of his music.
Yeah.
On the
Okay.
radio.
This song, I had a very close friend in New Orleans. I lived in New Orleans. Okay. I had a very close friend in New Orleans.
I know the song.
And he yeah, you recognize it now.
Yes, it is. I looked down, looked at the top.
Yeah. What happened was he was very, very wealthy. His family owned the DuPont industry. I mean, he was one of the heirs of the DuPont industry. Huge art family and money. I mean, old money. So this guy had billions of dollars.
Is that important in this business, money, to have money your own?
Well, yeah,
Does that help?
it is.
It always
It
helps to
is
have
in
money.
the fact that it allows you to record things that a record company wouldn't let you record.
But it's not necessary,
No.
particularly.
Yeah.
If you're talented.
not if you've got
Okay.
talent. It isn't.
Go ahead.
The main thing is to have the talent.
Yes.
The method to do things with.
Okay.
Now I haven't played this in about, I'd say, maybe a year or two.
But you wrote this.
But I dig it out about every year or so and do it,
Well, we thank
because in my shows, that's why I take this book, because in my shows, I go back and I'll do some of the older songs.
Well, that's a good story, so we like to
Yeah.
put the song to it if you don't mind.
Anyway, this man that was so wealthy was my age, and we were close friends. And he dated a girl from down in the French Quarter named Maria. Very beautiful young lady. Okay.
Yeah.
But his family found out about it, and they
Right.
said, we're going to disinherit you if you have anything else to do with her. So you have a choice. Now, this man took the choice, and then his choice was money. And he regretted that. I spoke with him years and years later, and he regrets it to this day. He would give every dollar that he has today for one night with Maria. True story. So I wrote this song about that. That is what this song is written about. And when I saw it happen, bam! I mean, in 10 minutes, I wrote this song in less than 10 minutes, and
That's great.
works
Good
wonderfully.
story. Can't wait to hear the song. I already know the
Well,
song.
I'm gonna
but you
do
go
a little
ahead
bit
and-
for you.
I had no idea that you wrote this song.
Well, I've got a great big house in Audubon. I made the charge my silver when I'm gone. But I would give it all away just to stroll with you down in the quarter. We never get older, sipping life like a fine wine. It's honey on the vine. Dark-eyed lady on a terrace high, smiling down at us as we walk by. She saw me kiss you soft wonder where you are down in the quarter. Down in the quarter. Sipping life like a fine wine. It's honey on the vine.
Like I said,
It's been a long time.
some people are born with it, other people's never had it. So there you go. Great
There
job.
you go.
Very good. Excellent.
Thank
Yes.
you.
That song was big.
And now you know the story behind it.
Yeah, I did. I wish that was about Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a good story that
Yeah.
was. And man, when you started singing, you just kind of like blew me away. I mean, you just
Well, I'm
you did it.
bashful. That's what's held me back all these years.
I can tell. Now, let's go on. So you hooked up with, you went into Nashville, you got this song,
Yeah, I got this recorded. and
which is unusual to be there so short a time.
I'm probably the only person in history who ever went to Nashville and 24 hours later had a hit top 10 single
Yeah.
within 24 hours and a publishing thing within, the day I get there.
Maybe Elvis.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Maybe.
But he had already done stuff in Memphis first.
That's right. He had started with that other recording.
I'd done
company.
nothing.
Yes.
So I'm going from flat.
Okay.
Elvis had a jump on me, I believe.
Yeah.
You
You
know.
didn't know Elvis.
No.
Good.
No, I never got to
That
meet
helps your
Elvis.
age
I
then.
never got to meet Elvis,
Yeah.
even though I wanted to.
I did
But
too.
however, I have worked with literally hundreds of artists, from Def Leppard to. I'm the guy that was at the Warehouse the night that ZZ Top recorded their live Fandango album. I'm the one that helped record that album.
No way.
Yes, absolutely. I
Wow.
work for a company called Kern Electronics, and if you look on the back of that album, it'll say engineered by Terry Kane, because of course Terry was the engineer and he gets the credit for it and so forth. I was just lucky to be there and working with him. I was an assistant engineer.
Yeah.
What my job usually amounted to, see, when I lived in New Orleans, I worked strictly as an engineer, and I worked for a sound company, and we did sound for every major group that came into the Superdome, including the Rolling Stones,
Sure.
Bachman Turner Overdrive. I went on a plane with Bachman Turner Overdrive. They hated it. They hated the fact that part of the crew went on the plane.
Right.
But what happened with them is they got to New Orleans and fired part of their crew and had to hire part of us. So me and Terry and one more guy went on a plane with them, and and did 4 more shows. And it was good money, but it was an unpleasant experience with them. But I've worked with a lot of people, many met some fantastic, wonderful artists all over the world. I've met great artists, and the reason that I am friends with these people, and some of them, you meet some of them that you can say you've met, but I meet people all the time and say, well, I know this guy and I know that guy. No, they don't know him, they've just met him.
You're right.
There's a big difference between knowing somebody and meeting.
Exactly.
It's like me. I was a personal close friend of Gary Stewart's. Waylon Jennings, I was a pretty good friend with. He's been to my house 3 or 4 times. Just
Your house in
I was an
Nashville?
occasional friend. Yeah, my house in Nashville.
Okay.
Because my publisher, Tom Paul Glazier and Waylon Jennings were close friends of mine, of my publisher. And one day my publisher knocks on the door. I go open the door, and it's Waylon Jennings, Tom Paul Glazier, so he'd bring people over to my house all the time like that.
That's some heavy company.
Yes. And I met so I can say I met a lot of people that I'm not actually friends with,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I've met them. But there are certain artists who I am close friends with, Gary being one of them, and that's the way it works. You work with people, and
Now, Gary was already in Nashville when you went down.
Oh, Gary at that time lived back in Florida, but he had his deal with RCA.
Okay.
See, once he got his deal with RCA, he didn't want to live in Nashville. He wanted to live in Florida. He liked Florida. So he lived in Florida throughout his entire RCA years.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, he didn't live in Nashville. Gary only lived in Nashville till he got his deal. As soon as he got his deal, he moved back home. He said, I hate Nashville. I don't want to live here. You know, he didn't like the limelight of being able to walk out at the store and hey, Gary, you know, all this. You know, he didn't like all that stuff. He just liked to be left alone, you know. And he got that at home, back down home in Florida. And the only thing after that happened was if Gary was in Nashville, it was to record or to come up to see me, because I lived in Nashville now for the first time I lived there was 9 years. And he would come into town, and he would just stay in a motel. I'd stay at my house, you know. And he'd go do which enabled me to be able to go to a lot of recording sessions with Gary, even though, you know, like other people wouldn't be able to get into the studio, but I could because I was with him. And then, of course, I went on the road with him for 5 years. RCA actually put me on the road with Gary and told me, he said, you know, we want you to watch after you. They brought me into the office with a big meeting. And they said, okay, what we want you to do is we want you to watch Gary and make sure he don't do too much of this, and he don't do too much of this, and he don't do too much of this. And it's like putting the wolf with the sheep. You know, I was as bad as he was. So, you know.
Sonny, you said the first time you lived in Nashville.
Yeah, the very first time I lived in Nashville.
So
I lived in Nashville.
You left Nashville and then went back.
Yeah, I lived there actually 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every time.
And I probably will live there again sometime, because I love Nashville. I really do.
Does that energize your career when you're in Nashville and around that kind of atmosphere?
I love being around musicians and music and all that kind of stuff. I really do. But I'll tell you what happened with me is I got tired of all of the rat race part of the music business, because they will lie to you and cheat you out of every dollar that they can possibly do. Everybody, even down to people I trusted, still cheated me.
Who is they?
Well, one of them was Roy Day, Gary Stewart's producer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he signs me to a label called Blue Day Records in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I put out an album called The Way of the Gun, and they're supposed to be promoting it, and they send me, I'm going out on a radio tour.
Mm-hmm.
You know how back then you could go on radio tours. So I did over 400 radio stations in a year and a half. I go to a town.
That's what Loretta Lynn did.
I would go to a town, and I would go to every radio station in that town, get a motel room, every radio station in that town. I'd get to the station, and my record, they wouldn't have my record, my CD. So that was that was in '91 when they first started making CDs.
Right.
So I'd give them a CD. So I went to Nashville, and me and my driver, I had a driver that drove me everywhere I went. In fact, he's from over in Pound, Virginia, named Henry Balthus. You guys might know it.
I know Bob Balthus, probably some of his relations.
Henry's a close friend of mine. Great. In fact, he saw me at Hillbilly Days. Love Henry. He's just like a brother to me. And I love all that family, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. Henry and Gary and all those boys. Mm-hmm. But, and a lot of other people over in Pound, Virginia. I know a lot of people over in Pound, and I like a lot of them. Mm-hmm. They're good people. Mm-hmm. But anyway, to make a long story short, I went to find out why. So I go into RCA Records offices. See, Blue Day Records was a subsidiary of RCA. Mm-hmm. So when I signed to Blue Day, it was supposed to be distributed by RCA. So I go into his office, and we're sitting there, and he says, "Hey, I got a meeting upstairs. I'll be right back." Mm-hmm. He said, "It's going, I got a meeting upstairs with some more RCA people, and it's going to take me an hour, maybe 30, 40 minutes, and have some coffee. I'll be back." I said, "Okay." And we were just sitting there, and having this cup of coffee, and I happened to look over and see the door open on the closet. And it was just like a door like this, just standing open a little bit, and it was, I don't know, for some reason, I don't know why, I just got up and walked over there and started to close it. Well, instead, I opened it. And it was full of records, and it went way back in there, and there was a bunch of records. And there sat 500 Sonny Tackett CDs in mailers, already made up to mail out to radio stations, and not mailed out. 500.
Oh no!
There sat another 1,500 CDs and 1,000 cassettes. I loaded every one of them in the back of my car and said goodbye Nashville. All 500 of them, all 1,500 CDs, and all 1,000 cassettes. Right in the back of my car. And wrote Roy a little note, said, "See you, Roy."
Did he ever call?
Never did. Never did. And he died an alcoholic. He died from being an alcoholic. And when you do somebody wrong, it catches up to you. I've learned that down through the years. I'm not going to do you wrong, because I'll tell you why. If I did you wrong, somewhere down the line, it might be a year, it might be 2 or 3, it's going to catch up to you.
Sure.
It catches up to you every time. And I said, you're not going to screw around with me. You know, me and Henry loaded every one of them up in the car, took them to him, and paid to have all of them sent out to the radio stations. Yeah.
Then how did that go after that?
It went pretty good after that. In fact, I did a lot of radio interviews. It did good. I sold every CD. And then, after that happened, I actually, the songs were in Roy's publishing company, Blue Day Music. Mm-hmm. To this day, I haven't been paid 1 penny of music, of royalty money from that publishing company. You see, you get paid a lot of, people in the music, that are not in the music business don't know this, okay? But you get paid many different ways in the music business. You get paid for every record that's sold, 12.75 cents now, okay? You get paid every time that record plays on the radio. You get paid every time it plays anywhere, okay? And the people who pay you, if there's mechanical royalties. Mechanical royalties are the ones from the actual album sales of the CDs or the records, okay? Then residual royalties are royalties that come in from people like BMI for being played on the radio stations, okay? I have to this day, the mechanical royalties go from, are paid out by the record company, okay? So all the time that Gary Stewart was on RCA Records, I got paid just like that, man. I mean, every time he put a record out, I got paid right on every 3 months.
Yeah.
The way it's paid is every 3 months. I got paid bam, 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 bam. Everything that sold and everything that played on BMI. Mm-hmm. As soon as he switched to high tone, that completely changed. I haven't been paid 1 penny of my royalties from High Tone Records, and he recorded 4 of my songs on High Tone Records. And those records you can buy in the store right now today, and yet I am not being paid for them.
Are they making money on those records?
Well, they're selling them, so they must be making money on them. If you can still find it in a Walmart store, it's selling.
What determines what portion of that money from BMI or CSAC or?
Well, I get 100% of my writer's royalties from BMI.
Okay.
100. Every song I have in BMI, 100% of my writer's royalties.
That's good.
Okay, then I get 50% of the publisher's royalties. So the publisher's royalties are what I haven't gotten from them. Okay, that would be the publishing company that Roy Day owned, Blue Day Music. Mm-hmm. If you look on the back of that album I've got right over there, I brought the CD with me. I can show it to you. It says, and I put it right on it. It says Blue Day Records, Blue Day Music. I haven't been paid 1 penny from Blue Day Records or Blue Day Music or RCA on that.
Wow.
RCA didn't distribute that. Mm-hmm. And I was told beforehand. And what happened is this. It came around, the truth finally came out. And the truth of the matter that came out was this. Roy wanted the publishing on my songs before he let Gary record it.
Well,
Shameful.
yeah.
Shameful. Okay, now I'm going to do the song that I told you about a minute ago. And this song is Make It a Double. The reason I'm doing this is this backs up what I just told you. I wrote this song on a plane coming back from Mexico City. Okay, Gary got his deal with High Tone Records. He had already recorded on his first High Tone Records a song I wrote called Looking for Some Brand New Stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Roy got the publishing on that, which I haven't been paid for. Okay, then they put a song out, an album out called I'm a Texan. And on that I'm a Texan, I brought the CD here to show you. I've got it right there with me. I can show it to you. And we'll zoom in on it there and show it in a minute. Okay. It'll say right on the back of it, Make It a Double, written by Sonny Tackett. You know. And Blue Day Music underneath it. Okay. And Gary recorded this. This is from my first album, the album that I just told you about that happened, that I found, and the mess that evolved concerning it. And just as soon as I got back home, Roy took Gary in the studio and recorded this on him. The same song. See, he had the ability to then because I had that song signed to his company.
Right. I'm anxious to hear it.
Woke up in a strange bed with a dark-eyed senorita. Roses on the nightstand and empty tequila. She said, we're in Mexico City. Why can't you get her out of your mind? I said, one more shot of tequila and I'll be fine. Just make it a double, 'cause it takes a lot. It's too much heartbreak for one little shot. Set me on fire, let it pour down like rain. Make it a double, 'cause I've got double the pain. She said she must have been something, 'cause you got it bad. I said I don't talk about it, but she was all I had. She said I'll make you forget her before the morning light. I said you got your work cut out for you tonight. Just make it a double, 'cause it takes a lot. It's too much heartbreak for one little shot. Set me on fire, let it pour down like rain. Make it a double, 'cause I've got double the pain. Make it a double, 'cause I've got double the pain.
That was terrific. Now,
Thank you.
tell me how that you're sitting on a plane and you can put those words together like that. I don't. How does that happen?
I don't know. I get an idea, and it's. I will tell you this, and this is a strange thing I've told other writers, and they don't believe me, but it's true. She can tell you. She's actually seen me do it.
We're talking about
90%.
Donna.
Yeah,
Okay.
90% of my songs have been written in 10 minutes. Almost all of them. Almost all of them are just there. I pick up a pen and a piece of paper, and once I get something going,
You start putting the music to the words.
I start writing right then.
Which comes first? The music?
Well, usually I need a melody of some type, you know. You know, you need something to start with.
Yeah.
You need something to take, and sometimes there's even a couple of songs. On my first album, there's a song where I sing it a cappella, no music. It's just me and my vocal, no vocal. And what I wanted it to sound like was an old regular Baptist hymn. You know how they do without the music and the vocal? And I was thinking about this and driving down the road in the van, and I just started singing this song. And I wrote this song driving down the road in the van and did it without any music because I was driving. Well, when I went in the recording studio and with Roy Day to produce this album, I told him, I said, I'm going to sing this last song by myself. He said, what do you mean? I said, I don't want any music on it, just me, just the vocal. And that's the way it's on the album. It's called The Way of the Gun.
And where'd you come up with the basis for that?
You know, I don't even remember. I was in Indiana, riding down the road, and I was headed to, I'll tell you what I was doing. I was going to Fort Wayne, Indiana from Indianapolis, and I knew this little studio that my buddies owned, and I was getting ready to go through that town, and I had this idea in my head, and I was writing the words down over here on a piece of paper, and I wheeled the van into the little studio, ran inside and said, hey guys, you guys got time to put this down for me real quick? Oh yeah, man, we'll put it down, son. You know, what instruments you need? I said, no, I don't even need a guitar. I just want you to turn the vocal on and let me sing it. And then when I get home, I'll put my guitar to it and do it like that.
Right.
Because I don't have the time, really. I was really, you know, the time was against me. So I just threw it down on the vocal. And when I got home and heard it on the cassette, I said, wow, man, that sounds great. By itself with no music, it just sounds real cool. And so when I got to Nashville, that's what I did.
Are these life experiences that you write about?
Oh yeah, or yours, or
Okay.
his, or
Okay.
his. I can see something happen to somebody else. It's just like my friend in the song about New Orleans. That was somebody else.
Sure.
You know. You know. I'll tell you what I did on this Make It a Double. I've been in Mexico City for a year, almost a year. I roll over and there's a little vase. There was a tequila bottle sitting there, empty, and it had this red rose in it, and that was the inspiration for that song right there. You know, woke up in a strange bed with a dark-eyed senorita.
Did you have a dark-eyed senorita with you?
No, just had just a tequila bottle.
Just want to make that clear.
Don't even lie, she says. Don't even lie. Don't.
He never lies, so.
No, I really don't. I'm telling you, I live my life and not lying. I hate liars. I hate that. Roses on the nightstand in an empty tequila. You know that. And once I got those lines, it was just fell into place like that. You know.
I tell you something. You were not being from here. You were not a rich man, and it took a lot of money to keep. Or where did you get your money to?
I'm rich in friends.
Yeah. So you were able to keep moving and keep traveling.
Oh yeah. As far as you mean making a living and making money and stuff.
Yeah.
No, I see. I've had 58 songs recorded. I made $45,000 the first year on the Tommy Overstreet hit.
So do you still make money? Do you still make money on those songs?
I still make money on
great.
that Tommy Overstreet song. I still make. In fact, they just re-released it on his new. They re-released all his collection on CD, and I'll start making money all over again.
You still make money on Making It Up?
I never made a penny on that one ever because of that
shame.
situation I told you a few minutes ago. It's been recorded 3 times. It was recorded also by Dwight Whitley. So that song's been recorded 3 times, and I've not made 1 penny on it.
Who was paid on that?
No,
You wrote the song.
The way it works
Do you
is,
have the rights of the song? Or the
well, I signed him to Roy Day's publishing company, which is Blue Day
so
Music.
Roy Day gets it.
Okay, so, well, it's his wife now, you know. And I've never to this day received 1 penny of royalties from her.
Yeah, but she's supposed to pay you.
Or 1 penny of royalties from the record company, you know, on that song. Not 1 penny. But I have from a lot of others, you know.
Yeah.
And
Why
I
don't you
actually made
record the
money
song?
on the songs that Marlowe wrote. He came to me one time, Marlowe did, and said, how come, he said, do you make royalties on Make It a Double and Would You Know Love, that and the stuff that charted for me and stuff? And I said, yeah, I made money on them. I didn't make real good money, but I made money on them, you know. And he said, you know, I've never made a penny on them. And I said, well, did you go down to BMI and go in and register your share? No. Well, excuse me, but you have to know this business. If you don't go down there and ask them for it, if a bank down the road here has a check for you for $500 and you don't go down there and get it, then you're not going to get paid. You know? And you got to take care of the business end of it. And the business end of it in music, if you do not take care of the business end of your music, you will not make it as a musician. You have to do that. You have to make sure that you're covered everywhere. Your songs mine are on 20 sites on the internet that you can go buy right now. You can order my songs from iTunes. You can order them from CD Universe, CD Baby, Amazon.com. My CDs can be ordered from anywhere on the internet. Anybody that on the internet that you want, you can find my CDs.
Great.
And not only that, but the singles, the ringtones. I make money on ringtones. You know, which is a big ripoff. Ringtones are, because they sell them for $2.75 a piece, and the phone company gets most of that money. I end up getting 50 cents. If you sell a ringtone the ringtone sells for $2.75. Okay, from AT&T. Now, I mean from iTunes to AT&T. Like if you had AT&T on your phone, and you put Sonny Tackett's Make It a Double song on there, it cost you $2.75. I only got 50 cents of that. That's not right. But there ain't nothing you can do about it.
I didn't even realize that was a business.
That's a big, you would not believe. Everybody has ringtones. What, baby?
That's interesting.
Michael Allman. Let's get into some happier things.
Well, I'm enjoying this. I mean, I'm learning stuff. I'm learning about the music business that I thought I knew everything about.
Well, I'll tell you what. People can take you very, very easily in the music business. And when they say that there's 400,000 starving musicians in Nashville, they're not lying to you. They're telling you the truth.
I've seen
but I never did. When I went to Nashville, I immediately, every time I've been down there, I immediately signed and I immediately started working. I immediately started doing things. And that's what I got.
Because they go down, they become waiters, or they get odd jobs to just live in Nashville.
They do anything they can to make a living while they're trying to get their songs done. And the thing about people say, I'm going to go to Nashville and play. Well, nobody makes money playing in Nashville because there's so many musicians, everybody will play for free, just to get their songs heard. So nobody makes money in Nashville. But, one of the, in my opinion, there is not an artist in Nashville today. This is my own opinion. Could, maybe not be everybody else's, but it is mine. There is not an artist in Nashville, and I'm talking about the biggest artist down there, that is good enough to carry Gary Stewart's guitar case.
Wow.
That's what I think about Gary Stewart. And that's why I think that you guys ought to have a museum here in this town saying something, that this is where Gary Stewart, the real musician, the real king of the honky-tonks, a real person that wrote real songs and was an awesome guy, an awesome performer, you should have something here to honor him. And I'm proud to be associated with doing that. And I have collected, I've actually, I've collected enough stuff for that museum almost by myself already.
Okay. I know Ked's talking about it, and I know that we're, as a city, you know, we're in that mode right now.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of picking the place and something to put it there.
This is when Gary Stewart and I came to Kentucky in 1980. Okay? You can hold this up and let.
Okay, you help me.
Okay. Now this picture was taken of Gary at a close friend's house, David Mosley, in Water Gap, Kentucky, down around Prestonsburg. And we were playing that weekend at Star Music Land, and I know David, and I took Gary over to his house, and he just loved it because David had his motorcycle in his house. He said, I mean, a man that takes care of his motorcycle that good, he's got it in his house, you know, that's got to be really cool. So what he did is I took the picture, and in fact, I took, there's about 20 pictures that I brought today that go along with this one. That's other shots of the same night, and then shots of the night after that, which was Saturday night when we played on stage. So I have some on stage shots of Gary also. But do you see that signature? Do you know when that signature went on? That signature went on that picture when he was inducted up here, and you guys had him up here in 2002. It wasn't on there till then. So we took this picture in 1980, and David Mosley brought his copy up here, and I wasn't available then. I was out of town. I couldn't come in. And he brought his picture up here and had Gary sign his name on his original picture. And he did it here in Jenkins at, I think it was 2002 or 2000. It was
2000.
Something like that.
Year 2000.
It was 2000, okay, somewhere through there. I knew it was through there somewhere.
Honored, you know, with the Gary Stewart section of the Country Music Highway.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and I also brought with me some pictures of Gary Stewart on stage here singing that night that you guys had him here, on stage singing with that US 23 sign behind him.
Wow.
I brought that with me. I brought all kinds of Gary Stewart pictures and memorabilia. I've got tickets. I've got posters of Gary Stewart playing at the roadhouses in Texas and Louisiana and everywhere. I've got all kinds of stuff on Gary.
Can we mention that's a Harley?
That is a Harley, and that was David Mosley's, and he got it for his graduation from high school in like 1969 or.
I'll bring this over so he knows more about this than I do.
That's rare. That's rare.
That really is rare.
There. That is an album by Gary. That's an album by Gary of Cactus and a Rose on an 8-track tape.
No,
when I found that, I just was so overwhelmed. I loved it. I had to have it, you know. So I got it off this guy, and I've kept it ever since. And it's just it's something that you probably will never find again. You know,
well, I'm sure they don't even make these anymore.
It does play. Actually, I've played it in a player, and it does play.
It has Ghost Train, Harlan County Highway. We made it as lovers.
Okay, let me tell you a little story about this album.
Why couldn't we make it as friends?
Let me tell you a little story about this album. This is called Cactus and the Rose, and this is the only album that was not produced by Roy Day. This was produced by a producer in Nashville named Chip Smolman, whom I also know. He produces more in a rock and roll style. And this album is a lot more of a rock and roll style and so forth. Like And it has people on it like Greg Allman, Dickie Betts, Warren Haynes, Bonnie Bramblett, people like that who are in the rock and roll field, as opposed to having people like the country pickers on it. And
this was RCA.
That was RCA.
Yes,
That was RCA. Yes, and that was the one that was supposed to cross him over into rock and roll. Well, if you notice, if you heard my CD from Hillbilly Days, I've got a little growl to my music. I mean,
I heard it a while ago. Yeah.
Okay. I do. I mean, I feel it. That's just the way I am. I had to.
They call that passion.
Back. You go back and you listen to all of Gary's early stuff, and that was nowhere to be seen. Nowhere. He came to visit me in Kentucky and stayed about a month. When he went back, he recorded this album. That growl is all over this album. It's all over it. Listen to it. I mean, go home, take your copy and listen. Believe me, trust me. I would not lie. That's why I was saying earlier that I learned a lot from Gary, but Gary was very, very adept at picking up from other people. And when I went to in 2005, I went down and recorded an album which we didn't release yet. Mm-hmm. We're still, there was problems with it and we didn't release it. Mm-hmm. The problems being the music, not record labels or anything like that. It was the music wasn't quite there yet. So I got to be satisfied or I'm not releasing it. Okay.
Sure.
So anyway, I went down and I played and did an album with Gary's band. Mm-hmm. We recorded. I stayed with them a month, as a matter of fact. And we recorded. And after I was there 3 days, little Jimmy Smith came through the house and he said, "You know what, man? I know where Gary got his growl at now." Yeah. And and when this album came out, my good friend Rex Sanders, who some of you guys might know, he's from up on Elkhorn Creek. I grew up with Rex, went to school with him at high school with him, and graduated at Dorton High School with Rex. Mm-hmm. And he called me on the phone. He said, "Man, guess what? I just heard Gary Stewart's brand new album, Cactus in the Rose." He said, "He stole your growl, brother." I said, "No, you know what he done? He picked up on it."
Sure.
And that's what a good musician does. They pick up on other things. Gary would hear something that he liked. Well, he'd pick that up and incorporate it into his show. And this has that all over it. In fact, to be honest with you, he had a big argument with RCA Records over it because he took it to an extreme on a couple of songs. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you the songs. Roaring is one of them. Mm-hmm. Roaring being one of them. And let me look at it real quick here. I just love Harlan County Highway. Harlan County Highway is one of the most awesome songs ever written. I swear it is. He does such a wonderful job of that.
Who owns the rights on these songs today?
A lot of these songs are in Gary's publishing company. I mean, not owned by Gary, but the publishing company that Gary was signed to, which was different than the one that I was with.
Okay.
It's not RCA. It's another publishing company. He was signed to. He was signed to High Tone Records, but he was signed to another publishing company, 2 or 3 different ones. In fact, I can look on the other. They have it on the other one, but it's Okeechobee Purple and Roaring, and you can really hear it in that, Mm-hmm. And I brought this is one thing that I'm very, very proud of. If you can zoom in on this right here. This is Gary Stewart's greatest hits, okay? This is his greatest hits on RCA. And I have a song on it.
Really?
It's the last one. It's called
Let's forget that
Let's forget that we're married.
we're married.
Let's forget that we're married. Let's be single tonight. We wrote that we took it to RCA producer who produced it, and he said, who by the way, wasn't Roy. It was, I'll think of his name in a minute, but neither one of us liked the producer. But anyway, he said, he listened to 3 songs. That was the one he picked out, and he said, I like it, but it's not finished. If you can go to a motel room tonight, finish this song, we'll record it tomorrow. Okay, we went to the motel room that night, and as the sun was coming up over top of Nashville, and you could see the Nashville skyline open up, we finished the song. It took us all night, but we wrote that song that night because we just never could seem to get satisfied with it, you know. Mm-hmm. And we finally wrote it, and it was a big hit for Gary. Big hit for Gary.
Yeah.
Now I have a song on this one here. As you can see, it's number 9, and it's a song I just did called "Make It a Double." Now that's on High Tone Records.
Now, was he a motorcycle guy?
No, Gary really wasn't a motorcycle guy. I never understood why he took that picture on that motorcycle. As a matter of fact, he just to my knowledge, in all the years I ever saw him, I never saw him riding one. But he liked the atmosphere of being around motorcyclists and stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm. The bad boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the first album on. It's called Brand New. This is the first album on Gary's when he signed to High Tone. There was a period of about 5 or 6 years after he left RCA where he didn't sign to any other record label, but just a couple of small indie labels, you know. Yep. And then he signed to High Tone Records out in California. And this is the very first one called Brand New, and I have the title cut on this song, Looking for Some Brand New Stuff. So I've got a song.
So he did a lot of your music.
He recorded 14 of my songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. He sure did. And you know what? I've learned to do? This is what I've learned to do. Back up what you say. If you say something, have it to back up. Gary recorded my song on this album. Right here it is to show you. You back up what you say.
That's right. That's amazing.
You're
a good writer.
And that's and now that of course I brought some real rare stuff in here. Now these are songs that Gary this is what I'm trying to tell you about Gary, is that he was so much more than just a performer and everything. There are so many people who recorded his songs. Okay, this is a rare. Well, this is Shady Streets here with everything a good little girl needs. Now, during the period when he was off High Tone Records, he signed with a little bitty label over here in Virginia called Red Ash Records. Red Ash Records. Have you ever heard of Red Ash Coal Company?
No.
Okay, well, they're right over in Virginia somewhere. And they signed him. They created a little record label and put Gary on it. And these are the releases they had on that label. Okay? But they didn't go anywhere. Hey, Bottle of Whiskey, I've Got a Bad Attitude, Roadhouse Romances. They didn't go anywhere. But if you'll look at this one, what I was trying to tell you about Gary's writing is, you may not realize this, but Gary has had over 100 songs recorded by other people. Yeah, all kinds of other people. Tanya Tucker, Hank Williams Jr.
Songs that he wrote.
Red Sovine.
Did you all ever collaborate? Did y'all ever do a song together?
Oh, me and Gary wrote many songs together. We wrote many, many songs together. Torture off my first album we wrote together. Yeah. You know, I just told you about us going up on the mountain and writing. We wrote all the time together. We wrote a lot of songs together. Yeah. Gary and I wrote a lot. This is Hank Williams Jr.
I saw that.
And this is a song called Leave Them Boys Alone, and Gary wrote that. Okay, see, that's what I'm trying to tell you about, that Gary was so much more than just what you saw. Now, here is Rose in Paradise by Waylon Jennings, written by Gary Stewart. Now, a lot of times he had co-writers on some of these.
There's one on there that Jim Lou both wrote.
There, yeah, actually, on this album right here, this one, his wife Lou had never written in her life, never written any songs. All of a sudden, she come through the house one day, and he was sitting at the table trying to find her. Kept going over his line and wasn't getting it. And she said, "Well, what about this?" And it fit perfect. And he said, "Well, I like that," you know. And all of a sudden, they were writing together. They wrote every one together except one song on this album, and I wrote it. So Gary and Mary Lou, his wife, wrote every song on this album except one.
Is Mary Lou's?
Mary Lou she's passed away.
Has she?
In fact, that's Gary's reason for not being here today, was his wife, Mary Lou. Gary, people don't know this, but Gary lied about his age, and Gary married her when he was 15 years old. He was with her for 43 years. She was 19, he was 15.
Wow.
He was with her for 43 years. The only time they ever separated in their entire life was when his son committed suicide. When his son committed suicide, and his wife went all to pieces and blamed Gary because in her grief, she thought he could have stopped it, when in reality he could not have. And she realized it, and that's another thing I'm very, very proud of, is the fact that I'm the guy that got them two back together.
Right.
He came to my house and stayed almost 4 months. And one day I got up, and he was sitting on the bed playing his guitar, and I walked past the bedroom, you know, and saw him sitting there, and he looked sad. I walked in and called, and I got on the phone, and I walked outside and called her. And I called, and I said, "Mary Lou," said, "Gary wants you to meet him at the Hall of Fame in Nashville tomorrow morning. Can you be there?" "Oh, yeah, I'll be there, honey. I'll be there." I said, "Make sure now, I'll be there in the morning." I'll get my stuff together and leave right now." Okay. I turned around, I walked back in there, and I said, "Gary, man," I said, "Gary, man, Lou just called." He said, "She did?" And I said, "Yeah, she just called." I said, "But she said she just had a couple of minutes to talk, but she said, asked me if you could meet her in Nashville tomorrow at the Hall of Fame Inn. I'll take you down there." Oh, started packing right that second. Right that second started packing, okay. You know, and I drove him into the Hall of Fame, and she was sitting in the lobby when we got there. And they just, you know, grabbed each other, and after a few minutes turned around and seen me sitting there, you know, and Gary coming, both of them give me a big hug, and I said, "I love you both. I'll see you later."
Did they ever know what you did?
Oh yeah, both of them found out about it later on.
Did they?
Both of them found out. Both of them give me a hard time.
Yeah.
But it was the only lie I ever told either one of them. You know. And it was a very worthwhile. It was one of those white lies that you tell to help people, not hurt them, you know.
That was a lie for love.
Yeah, that's the truth, man.
Are we going to get to hear the song "Torture"? Did you plan to do that one?
I hadn't, but I can. But Gary and I wrote a lot of good songs together. I'll play you some good songs we wrote together here in a minute. Let me play. I got a couple of other things here real quick.
Okay,
I'm going to show you. Okay. Now
we've been a couple hours. Let's push on.
Gary had tons of people record his records. Okay. All kinds of people. Hank Williams Jr., Tanya Tucker, everybody. But guess who recorded one of his records, and he was the most proudest of everybody who ever recorded a Gary Stewart song. Who was he the most proud of?
No idea.
Roy Rogers.
Really? Roy and Del Rogers.
Roy Rogers.
Well,
It's called Happy Anniversary.
yes, there it is.
Gary was so happy that he actually got in touch with Roy.
Now that's on a Capitol label. 'Cause
Yeah.
Roy did that on Capitol.
Yeah, that's the real Roy Rogers. That's the real cowboy Roy Rogers.
And had Trigger. Roy and Trigger.
That's the real thing right there. And was even invited out to Roy Rogers' ranch and got to go out there and meet him and his wife and everybody after this happened. And he was the most proud of anybody who ever recorded his album, because as a youngster, when he grew up, that was his idol. And you would never think that, you know.
Gary Stewart, his name's right on the record.
It's right there. See, like I told you, I never say anything I can't back up.
That's great.
That's what you should do. You should be able to back up what you say.
Happy Trails is what the song he's best known for.
Yeah, Happy Trails. And all the rest of these things are, okay, to make a little bit of a splash here, going back. Marlo Tackett.
Yep.
Sonny Tackett.
Sonny Tackett. There
Yeah.
you are.
Okay. Would You Know Love, the one that went into the charts? Sonny Tackett.
Yes.
Okay, I never
And
say
that's
anything I
Marlo.
can't back up.
Yeah.
You see Marlo recorded it, see who wrote it.
Were you on? Did you do any vocals on this for him?
I didn't do any vocals on it.
Mm-hmm.
We had there was a group of singers called the Leah Jane Singers, and they were hired to do that. This is one of Gary's really early on the Cap record label. You're Not the Woman You're Supposed to Be, on the Cap level before he ever got on RCA.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got them going way back to way back, you know, Honky Tonk Man. He wrote Honky Tonk Man, Gary Stewart did, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
And Lacey J. Dalton, a female singer in Nashville, had a big top 10 single on that song right there. So there's been just hundreds of people who recorded Gary's songs. That one is Son of a Honky Tonk Woman, Brand New Whiskey. It's just another high tone record. But
Did he do Gary Stewart? Seems like all of his songs, like you said a while ago, you knew that this was a Gary Stewart song, but he sang a lot about whiskey.
Yes. But if you go back and you look at the songs and you read them, he isn't singing like saying, go out and get me some whiskey. He's singing about what whiskey did to you.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, the next thing I want to get into is, with you real quick, is, like I told you before, Gary was an incredible, he loved and was very close friends with all the Allman Brothers. I'm talking about, and you're talking about big time here. You're talking about, these guys are the majors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Gary told me, he said, Sonny, me and your pups, he said, they're the big dogs. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is Michael Allman, who is Greg Allman's son. Now, I recently produced this here in Kentucky with Kentucky musicians, and Michael recorded one of my songs on it. It's called Laid Back, and the story about Laid Back is Greg Allman put an album out in 1973 named Laid Back, and it became my favorite album. Still today is my favorite album. I just loved it, but about a short time after I got it, I started looking at it and I said, well, you know, this doesn't have you can open it if you want to. I didn't know I could grab one that wasn't opened, but feel free to open it. It's got lyrics and everything inside. But to make a long story short, I wrote this song called Laid Back because I loved the album and I thought it was wonderful, but it didn't have a song on it called Laid Back. So that left it open for me to write one. And I said, okay, I'm going to write this song called Laid Back. And I sat down one evening and I wrote it. And
So the title of an album didn't have a title song to match the album.
yeah, it didn't have a song. It didn't have a
That's
song called
unusual.
Laid Back
Yeah,
on it.
that's unusual. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, you can't copyright a title anyway. You can only copyright a song. There might be 50 songs named Laid Back. You can't copyright a
I
title.
didn't know that.
You can't copyright a title. There might be 20 songs named Looking for Some Brand New Stuff. I don't know. You know, you can look them up and see, but like I said, you can't copyright a title. You can only copyright a song. And, okay, the song, the album didn't have a song called Laid Back. So I wrote Laid Back. And I said, I am going to save this for Greg. And I turned down, you don't know how many stars, I mean stars, out of Nashville to record this song that didn't record it. And would have recorded big stars. And my publisher got really, it's published with Kid Ron, got really angry at me over it because I wouldn't sign off on it. I would not sign off on it. I said, no, I'm going to run into Greg and he's going to record it. Well, I was backstage many times with Greg Allman and the Allman Brothers Band, but it seemed like me and Gary always ran with Dickie Betts, who was the guitar player. Mm-hmm. If we were around Dickie. And even though, and being around these people, these are big time people. You don't just walk up and say, hey, let me sing you a song. I mean, you just, out of personal courtesy, you just don't treat them that way. So I almost had an opportunity 2 or 3 times to sing it to him. I think if I had of, he would have recorded it, you know, but I just missed those chances each time. And over the internet, Michael Allman heard my version of this song, which I didn't even bring one of my records. I got one out in the car. But I've got, it's on my album, Outlaw's Lament. So Michael and his manager wanted to record it, but they didn't want to ask me because they said, well, Sonny's got it out. We don't want to ask him now if we can record it. They heard it so one day I was on the internet and I went over to Michael's site and wow, right there was my song. He had my song up on his site. Instead of playing a Michael Allman song, he was playing a Sonny Tackett song. I said, wow, that's really cool. I love it. I love it, you know. So I went over to Skinner's site, Tom Floyd Skinner, who is his manager. Mm-hmm. He had it up as his profile song. You know, Laid Back by Sonny Tackett. Mm-hmm. Up as his, I said, wow, you know, I said, that's pretty cool. So I sent Michael a message, and I said, man, thanks for putting my song up as your profile song. By the way, he was one of the Allmans I hadn't met yet. Mm-hmm. And I said, thank you a lot for putting my song up as your profile song. It's really cool. And I said, by the way, I'd like to hear you record it. I'd like to hear you sing it someday. You know, just off the top of my head, I said it, you know. And before, I was getting ready to close down my computer when I did it. And I went to hit the button to log out, and bam, a message come up. And I went and hit the message, and it said it was from Michael Allman, and it said, excuse me, but we have to tell the truth here. It said, hell yeah, I want to record Laid Back. Well, I hadn't offered to let him record it. I just said I'd like to hear you sing it. You know what I mean? But since it had gone that far already, I said, I thought about it. Yeah. I thought about it, and I said, okay, this is good. So I called him, and we talked about 2 months about it and stuff, and I made an agreement with him. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. You let me produce it, and I'll let you record it. And that's the deal we made. And they came up to Kentucky, and we recorded it at Jack's Track Studio in Whitensville, Kentucky, with some of the best musicians. And I brought musicians in from all over the United States. And a lot from Kentucky. James Whited, the guitar player who played on my Hillbilly Days CD, he played saxophone on it. His father, Jim Whited, played steel guitar on it. You know, who is just great. So I'm gonna play this song, And the reason I'm going to play this one is that story right there. I told you the story about how that happened, and the thing that the biggest reason is, look at the date on this song, 1971. I wrote this song, and it's actually wrong. It's 1973. Mm-hmm. See, Greg Allman put the album out in 1973, so I wrote the song in 1973.
Yep.
And so this song, it was 37 years after I wrote the song that it finally got recorded.
Is that unusual sometimes they never
Well,
get
no,
recorded?
because many people asked me to record it, and I wouldn't let them.
Mm-hmm.
I was holding it for Greg.
Yeah.
But I said to myself, okay, well, I haven't gotten to Greg. Greg's gotten way older. His voice has changed a lot. Maybe I should let Michael do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, this is good. Okay, this maybe it was never meant for Greg. Maybe it was meant for his son. You know. So that's what happened. I let him do it. But to make a long story short, this is in what makes this so rare is this is in the first 10 songs that I ever wrote. Once again, like the other song I told you earlier, was one of the first 10 songs I ever wrote. Now, when Michael recorded this song, that songwriters generally write for years. They write a long time first, you know. And then what happens is, after they've written 10 or 20 that are okay, they'll finally get one that's good, and then they'll finally get one that's better, and then they'll finally get one that's worthy of being recorded. Well, all 10 of the very first songs that I ever wrote in my whole life have now been recorded by signed artists. All 10 of them. There wasn't a space in there where I went and it was like, okay, I'm writing terrible songs, I'm getting a little bit better, I'm getting a little bit better than that, I'm getting better than that. So the way that Gary told me, Gary told me it was a gift. He said, you've got the gift. And so this made all 10 of the very first songs that I ever wrote recorded by signed artists. Don't care if the north wind's blowing cold outside. Don't mind if the rest of the world just drifts right on by. Let that old hoot owl holler over in the cottonwood tree. 'Cause baby, all that matters is you and me. As long as I'm already here, you know I might as well stay. And I'm just laid back thinking about you and me. Sweet baby, I'm just laid back thinking about you and me. Used to think that the day wasn't long enough to get things done. Lost a lot of good times, I was always on the run. Lately I've been thinking I need a hideaway. You're about the only thing on my mind these days. The better things in life are things you never see. And I'm just laid back thinking about you and me. Sweet baby, I'm just laid back thinking about you and me. Oh, baby, yeah. So about you and me. Sweet baby, just laid back thinking about you and me. Sweet baby, laid back thinking about you and me. Thank you, folks. Thank you, thank you. Don't clap, just throw money.
I need to what? I didn't hear you. Pause it just a second. I need to what?
They're needing you to go get some supplies.
Oh, okay, yeah, we're about ready. I want to thank you for joining us here on Government Channel 98. We've had the pleasure of visiting with Sonny Tackett. And this has been a prelude as to what to come, and he's going to be with us again come Jenkins Days, August 26th, 27th, and 28th here in Jenkins, Kentucky. He's going to be on stage performing some great songs of his and probably some of Gary Stewart's songs also.
Absolutely.
It's been a treat. I want to thank you so much.
I want to thank you so much.
And I want to hear one more song as we close out here today. Thank you. It's been a long interview, but one that we've enjoyed. We're going to finish with Rosalita.
I'm going to do Rosalita for Ked. He loves this tune. And I'd like to say that I was in Florida and I met, I just went into this little store and I heard this Spanish lady say to her child that she had, she was into something or doing something. She said, Rosalita, come here, Rosalita. And I like the name. So this just goes to show you that anything can inspire you to write a song. I like the name Rosalita, so I went right straight back home, wrote this song. This is in Florida, when I was staying in Florida. And of course, Rosalita became a woman, and this is not about a little girl. It's There's a chance that you have saved me more than once from the demons that haunt my place of choice. And though you say you don't love me at all, there's my picture